hello, everybody. I'm Mike. That's Danny. That's Jason. We're your hobby hotline geniuses tonight. Well, at least these two guys are. I'm just the good looks of the crew tonight. Nobody's arguing. I like that. That's good.
I was thinking hobby hotline calendar.
Oh my gosh.
It opened a whole nother big can of worms.
Everybody that knows Hobby Hotline, their brains should be melting right now, thinking about who would be December.
Sorry.
You know, John Newman does kind of look like Santa Claus. Like if you just gray up his beard.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. And I'll be his little elf or something. I don't know. Oh my gosh. That would be roll over funny if we did a hobby. You know, we did the cards for the national.
But we should sell calendars.
Sell calendars for charity. Be like, we have to pay people to buy them from us.
Do you think signatures for soldiers would turn us down? Feel like we're good.
Thank you. Y'all are great, but no.
Right. That's too funny.
Jason, how are you today?
I am doing pretty well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we got some fun stuff to talk about. We're going to go dive into kind of this whole Fanatics taking over the world stance that they're certainly taking. It's weird to think about. It feels like it was a long time ago that this whole Fanatics thing happened, and it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things, but it feels like it was. The first thing I want to talk about is where do you guys think Fanatics wants to be in the hobby? If you were to use a few sentences, Jason, start with you.
I think they want to be that iconic name that, like, when you think of baseball cards, typically for the older generation, it's Topps. You know, when you think wrestling, it's Hulk Hogan. Even if you don't watch it today, like, you know, you think Hulk Hogan. I think that's what they're aiming for. And, you know, it's going to take a few years to get there, but I think that's the end goal.
Danny?
Data. They're a data company. They're a marketing company. That's been their specialty on all their products is they sell better. That's their secret sauce. I've talked to dealers that are getting the direct Topps contracts since Fanatics bought them, and they're making it very clear that they're going to want data.
Yeah, and that makes some sense. You know, they're going to want to try to, as things roll out, what sells, what doesn't, you know, this and that.
They've already cut out some of the distributors, so it could be better margins, you know, for the local card shops, which would be nice. They're already selling some of their cards in the lid stores, which is interesting. As opposed to going to Target, you can go to a Lids. You know, it's all going to be under one umbrella. You know, they're going to be able to market. You know, if you buy a jersey of a certain player, you're going to start seeing pop-up ads, you know, of cards for that set or showing that player.
You know, something super minute, but it was a conversation that we had in our little Twitter chat that we, you know, have as far as our scheduling and stuff goes. And I used to be a Lids manager, and our discount for hats and apparel and whatever was 40%. So you know, of course, I'm like, well, there's no way that Fanatics is letting them get 40% off the cards. When I was there, a different company owned it. It wasn't Fanatics. It was a company called Genesco. So I did go on vacation a couple weeks ago, stopped in a Lids, kind of got talking to the girl in there. They still have that 40% discount, but there is a 0 discount on their trading cards in the stores for employees. So 0 employee discount.
Wow.
So they've definitely got a tight grip on that. And also going to what Danny said for that information, with them running all of these online shops, they run Lids, they run MLB, they run, you know, I think they even run NASCAR. Like he said, it's data. You're seeing what people are buying. You can send out email lists and tailor those email blasts to card releases and everything else that they sell under the sun.
targeted ads, right? I mean, that's the wave of the future, I guess.
I think it's the wave of the present. I mean, everything we do now, you say it out loud, the ads on your screen tomorrow.
Before we get too far into the show, I do want to send out a Hobby Hotline's condolences to a friend of the show, Tracy Hackler. His wife passed away today or yesterday. Was it yesterday? Today. Today. I think the announcement came out today. And so Tracy, thoughts and prayers with you, man. Can't even imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Wish you well, man. Wish you well. So I think Fanatics, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, the one ring to rule them all, right? I mean, you can have all these other things happening. There's other rings in Lord of the Rings, but there's one ring that rules them all, and the ring of power, right? And so they're going to be the ring of power. They're going to control everything. They're going to want to be what the word is, monopoly, right? I should have worn a monocle, because Monopoly was my favorite game growing up, still is. Like, I love Monopoly, could play it all the time. And I should, what's the guy's name in it? The guy with
the monocle.
Yeah, is he just Monocle Man?
I don't know that he has a name. I think he's the Monopoly Man.
The Monopoly Man, yeah. Should have dressed up. I have his haircut, right? Jason and I are sport. Yeah, we're all getting there slowly but surely. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say on Fanatics, one of the things that I think people should realize is in their big picture, the cards is still a very small part. It's really just kind of just the top of the first for them in the hobby and the card business. None of their Panini licenses on NBA and NFL actually kick in fully for several years.
Yeah.
I mean, the effect of all this, but they're going to be able to control an actual release cycle that will probably fall very strategically around their marketing. So when you talk about impact on the hobby, it'll be, I think, a much more professional approach in some ways. And that's not a shot at anybody now, but I think it'll be maybe a little bit more professional on just some of the mistakes and some of the distribution. But it's going to be an interesting couple of years on how they transition, because the rumor of Panini has been going on now, it feels like, for a year, and there's still nothing official there. So how are they going to play both sides of the fence until they have all the license?
Yeah, I think they have to hit a home run pretty early to have the collecting world buy in, right?
See, I think they do nothing is the best thing they can do.
Because you think we're that dumb that we'll just buy it no matter what?
I think you keep
to a degree, yeah.
Yeah, you keep tops on tops, you keep Bowman on Bowman, and you don't brand
almost business as usual.
Yeah.
And what you said, Mike, I'm not saying I disagree. I don't think they have to hit a home run, but they sure can't strike out. I mean, if they get that double or that, almost, that almost double, I'll take it, that long single. But it's almost like there's so many irons in the fire, and they have so many licenses that start at the same time that I don't know if I want them to put all their eggs in one basket as far as like a design team or, how they split that up. But it's tough because it's like everything starts at once, but we're in this waiting game for 2 or 3 years.
See, I think the fact that they've cut out the distributors, what's the best way to make friends? If they can trim the prices and not change the product, I think that's the best way to introduce yourself. So it seems like those have been their first two moves. So they made no changes to the Topps product since they bought Topps out completely that I know of. So, maybe we'll get lower wax for the next year or two and have no difference.
To me, I think the biggest mistakes Fanatics is doing is I think they're taking on too much. I think they're going to get bloated in terms of all the different parts and processes that they're going to want to control from the printing. They bought the printing company, they own all the licenses, they own the brands, at what point is it just too much for them to deal with effectively, efficiently? I mean, think about being, be really good at something, pick something. Don't try to be mediocre at everything, right? Good to great, basic, tenets of business, right? If you know how to print cards, be that guy. That's why all that stuff was outsourced. Topps could long ago have bought the printing company or started developing their own, buying their own printers and doing all that themselves. There's probably a really good reason that they didn't. They're like, hey, we're just going to make cards. We're just, that's what we do. We're going to design and everything. And then we're going to outsource the printing. We're going to outsource. We're not going to grade our own cards. We're going to let a third party grader grade cards and all this stuff.
Well, but it's more twisted than that, because the leagues own a part of the license, which they sold to Fanatics. And Fanatics is not just going into the hobby, but they're going into gambling, part with interest with the leagues. I mean, you talk about monopoly and tentacles. I mean, it gets ugly real quick.
Wow. Nobody buys their own printers. Well, the printing companies do, don't they? I mean, doesn't somebody have to?
I buy my own printer.
Well, slightly different. No, and I don't know. Then Steve, I would ask, why did they buy the printing company? Is it going to be a just wholly owned subsidiary of Fanatics and still run autonomously and do its own thing? Or is it, that's what we just don't know yet, right?
I mean, that was one of the big questions everybody was, I think half the industry summit was just waiting for Fanatics to give any news on anything, and nothing really came out.
Yeah, I sure thought the Panini shoe was going to drop. I think we talked about it the day before or whatever. So Steve's asking, did they? Yes, they bought the printing company that prints the cards.
Wasn't it the Panini printer that Fanatics bought?
There's only one or two printers in the entire country that print sports cards. Most of them are printed in Grand Prairie, Texas. Both Topps and Panini are printed at the same place.
Okay, because I thought that was part of the business dealings with the Panini aspect with Fanatics, was the control of that printer.
Well, it sure put Panini in a pickle now that Fanatics owns the printer. It's like, wait a second, now what?
Yeah, that was kind of my thought, was if Panini had some sort of, not exclusive, but maybe some sort of contract language to where they could print for Topps as well, but they couldn't print for just one. But if you're printing for just one, that would be Fanatics, who owns Topps, and we assume, or plan to announce that one day they're going to own Panini, which that would make sense, because then it's just for one, not for two.
Well, and Fanatics likes to devalue the companies they're going to buy. I mean, Topps was days away from a SPAC merger, and
Right.
Fanatics got the licenses for all the sports, devalued Topps. Topps lost their deal, and they got them for pennies on the dollar, and that name is now going to be worth 10x already on what they paid. So I don't think they'll have any problem putting pressure on Panini. I don't think they'll hesitate.
I'm sorry, I'm looking up. I'm trying to see if I can find a news story on this.
Steve says Nike does not own any factory. A lot of people don't, but when you're dealing with collectibles, when you're dealing with a certain quality level, it should be a little, there's at some point there's got to be a control when they're putting out 9s and 10s at the rate they are.
Yeah. masterclass in hostile takeovers.
That's what I do for fun on Tuesdays.
Well, it's a good thing it's Tuesday. All right. All of these developments, all of this stuff, I'm still reserving judgment on if it's good or bad for the hobby because I simply think we don't know nearly enough yet of what we need to know. We don't know what brands are going to keep. We don't know what they're going to get rid of. We don't know who's going to do what, as Jason said earlier. You know, are they going to have multiple design teams? Are they going to somehow incorporate Chrome and Prism and
Right.
They
can call it Chrism? They can call it Chrism.
And I'll give you. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
I was just going to say they still have a couple more years before all these start to acquire more licenses. You know, the one that we talk about on my show with Val and Logan, like, what is the Panini NASCAR contract? It's like one big mystery. And granted, I realize that is not the big four. That's less than 5% of the hobby. But, you know, they got the WWE license. And then this NASCAR thing, it's like some mystery as to how long their deal with Panini is. So, you know, what else are they going to acquire within these next 2 or 3 years? And we already think they might have too much to do.
Yeah, I think they're going to get in trouble with just overwhelmingness of everything. Danny, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think Fanatics just needs to be careful. No, I know a lot of the card shop owners. If you're not familiar, a lot of local card shops have a fixed markup and a fixed profit that they can pretty much count with their wax, and that helps them get throughout the year and have stuff they can count on. And then, you know, a lot of the singles and a lot of the shows are online can be in addition to that. For these shop owners, not knowing what the allocations, the margins, the price, the release schedule, it's scaring the you know what's out of them, and I don't blame them. I mean, Fanatics at some point, I think, needs to at least give them a fair shake of a timeline and explanation, even if they don't give the public a ton of details. The local car shops deserve it.
For sure. Who would you guys say is the most likely target for Fanatics if they decide to get into the grading business? And I think all of us think they would want to. Which company would be the most likely target for them, would you say?
Okay. I mean, I think the most attractive is always going to be PSA, but I think the most likely is Beckett.
Okay. Danny?
Are we allowed to spread rumors? I think the grading market is going to see a lot of mergers in the next year or two. So I think some of the existing companies may end up being merged together. Fanatics already slabs some of their own cards, not grades them, but they already slabbed them. So I'm curious on whether they sub that out to somebody else or if they already have those capabilities in-house. I'm curious on what direction that goes because right now they don't have a formal marketplace. I mean, all the other ecosystems with the vault, that's the marketplace, the grading, the price comps. I mean, all these other ecosystems are developing. Fanatics seems to take the card production, but they don't seem to have the rest of the ecosystem. So it'll be curious.
Well, to a degree, they kind of already do have the marketplace when they control the shops. And like you said, with the slabbing of cards, they've been slabbing not their autographs, but like autograph cards for years already. To me, they have the marketplace. They already have all the shops with all the, you know, the major leagues.
But if you go around a card show, you don't see a lot of people selling Fanatic slabs.
Yeah, 100%. Correct. Yeah.
I think that Orlando is onto something here. That would be my vote. I think they would go after SGC. But
I guess in my opinion, the Beckett thing was because when you have all the licenses, what's one thing you don't have? You don't have the grading, but you also don't have the price guides. And that database of the history of all the magazines, every issue that they've ever done, all that written content, and we kind of know we're in that industry. Content is king. I mean, right now, and there's a lot of money to be made, whether it's print, video, audio, whatever. That's the one thing they don't have right now.
How about Blackstone just bought CGS's parent company? What is it? NCC. The sports division could be split off pretty easily and probably bought away from Blackstone and let them keep everything else.
Are you talking about CSG? You said,
yeah, CSG's parent company was bought by Blackstone, and so splitting off the sports would not be I think a hard thing to do because most of their products are not sports.
Do you think you buy a company like CSG that is so new to the hobby, or do you buy one with the history?
Well, I don't think you can buy PSA. I don't think you can change the name on Beckett and keep the intrinsic value. I think that's one of the challenges. So I think that only leaves, to be fair, SGC or CGS. And I'm curious, SGC, they've had a real big couple of years. I wonder what their plan is.
Let us know in the comments if this is an interesting topic to you, because we can shift gears, but Dylan makes a good point here. By the way, Dylan was just on my show today. It'll air tomorrow, my Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. So that's a great episode. Hope everybody watches it. Yes, Beckett needs to do a whole lot of things to become relevant again. I've never seen a company with such a long-standing history become so irrelevant so quickly. It's been amazing to watch, and not in a good way. I mean, Beckett's synonymous with my childhood, right? I mean, none of us, just like Topps, I didn't want to see Topps go away when we heard that the licenses got bought out from under them. I was like, oh my gosh, you can't get rid of Topps. I feel the same way about the Beckett brand. Now it's a very different company than when Dr. Beckett actually ran it, right? Okay. It's very different today. So maybe my pipe dream of Beckett becoming relevant again is not only unlikely, but maybe even unnecessary.
I want somebody to do subgrades. That's the relevance to me. Is sometimes I like subgrades.
Yeah, they're good.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Other than that, I could take it or leave it. I'm pretty much going to be a PSA or SGC guy.
Well, you guys ask us some questions or do something. Y'all can come join the show too. I'll put the link here in the notes or the comments. This is a call-in show, or I guess it's click in. You would actually click into the show, not call in. Love to have you. Love to hear your opinion. What do you think about all of this for the hobby? We're just sitting here shooting the bull for an hour. We got 37 more minutes. So
let me ask you guys, because Mike, you kind of brought it up, and we've all touched on it. That Beckett kind of fell off hard and fast, and it all of course seemed like it was during the COVID years, as we kind of refer to it. But what do you think it was? To me, it seems like it might have been the age of collectors and flippers, that influx that we got. But I'm curious to see what your thought was, because I'm with you. Like Beckett, for my childhood, like when my article was in Beckett magazine a couple years ago, it was like the greatest thing ever. It was that childhood thing that I always wanted, but it sure fell hard and fast, and it doesn't make sense to me.
I think the lines have gotten blurred in the grading world. And what I mean by that is back in the late 2000s, the aughts and into the early 2010s, each grading company kind of had their niche, right? You had pre-war was SGC. That was kind of their specialty. They were really good at it. People dug it. PSA was the kind of just vintage kind of stuff, the post-war, through the 80s. And every Bowman Chrome card that came out went to, all the new stuff, all the rookies went to Beckett. It just felt like they had all established their place in the market very well, and all were getting along. And sometime in the last 5 or 6 years, that line has gotten blurred. And I think all the companies don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. I think they all want to be all things for grading. Like, well, we can grade, you talk to SGC, you're known as the pre-work. Well, we want to be known as the grade everything graders. And
Right.
PSA says the same thing. And, Beckett says the same thing. And they're all right. Like, it's all true. It's just,
Can I disagree with you?
well, I mean, it's all true that they could do it. I'm not saying, right? In theory, yes, they can all grade any card. But go ahead, Danny.
Well, I was going to say, isn't it really what the market supports? I mean, until the market's going to put equal value, it doesn't matter. The company's in a tough position. It's a chicken and an egg. The market's got to pay the price before people are going to grade with you, and nobody's going to grade with you till the market pays the price.
For the value add.
Yeah, I mean, PSA is going to get the premium, until you can have that value proposition. It's very hard to get people to convert. I mean, SGC, because of the pandemic and PSA shutting down, took advantage of that window, where Beckett, I think their ineptitude on where they were right before the pandemic was kind of the pressure that pushed the valve open, and then you saw the full management change.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a monetization of prices, right? Where everything's kind of racing to zero, right? On price, we'll be at $10 slabs in the next 6 months. But when did the shift happen? What, 5 or 6 years ago, right? And it became PSA was, I don't know if it was some influencer, some big cards got graded by PSA. I don't remember really what caused people to stop sending to Beckett as much, but I remember reading on forums. This was pre-YouTube and everything. This was 10 years ago. Reading on forums, every time somebody got a slab in of a new card, it was or a modern, a current card. It was in a Beckett slab, and that was a big deal.
It wasn't that long ago that a Beckett 9.5 and a PSA 10 were very close.
Right.
Yeah, and the Beckett 10 had the premium, and then the Black Label had almost like the super premium. And it seems like that's gone now.
Well, here's my theory on the pricing, Mike. Since you mentioned that they're dropping the cost, I think they're using pricing as a loss leader, and I think that's to get everything vaulted, and eventually, once they have the cards, they kind of control you. And I think they want you in that ecosystem. So I think that right now it's not a coincidence that everybody has a vault and prices dropped, and you can send it to the vault at no charge, or next to no charge, and cheaper grading. I mean, they're all racing for the same formula, and all the fees are if you actually want the cards back.
Okay, I need someone to explain to me the benefit of a vault system. Please, somebody tell me, why should I use a vault system?
Other than lower insurance cost?
That was my answer.
Which is about the sexiest thing I can come up with.
Yeah, I have a vault. I built it. It's right there.
Yes.
This is no lie, I've looked into, and it's super expensive, how to put a vault door on my room. Like, seriously, which is kind of funny. But the idea of vaulting is, I think, for a segment of the hobby that is using cards as just an asset, right? Mm-hmm. And not as a collectible, not as a personal thing. I don't want my cards. I shouldn't say all this on.
So I think you should put that comment that just popped up. I think that explains it right there. It's just to keep them. It's like the granddaddy of ComC for those high end people. They don't want to touch it. They just want to sell it back and forth.
I heard a great analogy about that. I need to go find it. Talk amongst yourselves for a second. I need to go find this comment because it was very brilliant. And I didn't say it, so that makes it super brilliant. The whole vaulting thing just drives me bananas.
Getting back to the idea of flippers, I mean, that's, once again, they want you in their ecosystem. If you're selling, with Golden and using their platform, or if you're using the eBay Vault and the eBay platform, PWCC, I mean, all of these are fighting for market share. They're fighting for users. Whoever has the most cards, the easiest service, like the comment said, and like Jason was saying, they've got your business. You're going to buy and sell on that platform. I don't think most people are going to open accounts on every vault.
Right. I mean, that just feels, guys. So right now there's what, 10 or 12 vaults out there, maybe more. I can't even think of all of them in the moment. Or can you go vault to vault? Can you go, I'm going from my eBay vault to my collectible vault to my.
So what you literally need to do is you have to pay the withdrawal fee from Vault A, ship it to your address at Vault B, and whatever they charge, if they charge to get it into Vault B, you have to do that. I mean, it's a hassle.
But there's nothing like the Upper Deck E-Pack to Calm C, where it's the fluidity, and then you can cash out to blow out cards. Like there's no easy step down. It's like he said, you're paying fees. It's like sending PayPal to yourself.
Well, and not only that, are you paying fees? But most of these vaults, or a lot of the vaults, are in Delaware, so you're not incurring any of your gains either until you take it out. So that kind of, I hate to use the word trapped, but it gives you more incentive to not pull your cards out, and that's what they want.
Do y'all want to see the first experience that I ever had with a vault? I have had experience with this. It's right here. Do y'all remember E-Tops?
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
So I'm actually going to, let me log in. I'm going to look at my cards. God, let's see if I can remember this password. I actually still have cards at E-Tops. I don't even care if anybody steals my password because wrong. Let's see.
I have some Top Shot cards for sale.
Well, and the reason it was such a good vault is because the shipping was so high. You didn't ever want to take them out and get them delivered.
My password's locked. What the hell? What's my secret question? I don't have a secret question, apparently, to be able to do that. But I do have a portfolio. I obviously forgot my password, so I'm just curious because they're still sitting there. And it costs remember what it costs? Like $5 a card to send them back to you or something?
I thought it was $5.95, and that's in 2001, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's $10 now, probably.
I'm gonna try to. I'm just so curious now. Y'all have got me off on this. Oh, I'm so like this. It's so broken and so old that it can't even. It doesn't even know who I am, which is great. Yeah, it's puking everywhere on me. Yeah.
The problem I had with E-Tops was the holders didn't match up with anything that you could buy anywhere else. So it always stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, there you go. Look at those awesome cards. And I have a bunch of them in hand that I got delivered. But the idea here, right, was for those of you that don't know, you could buy and sell the cards on this virtual marketplace where you can, trade with your friends or buy and sell, and it would give you this market data, this current eBay price, and you could sell it straight on eBay from, like, there was a link to just create the listing of your card. Everything was supposed to be seamless and easy. I think there's actually some pretty big cards. Like there's a Pujols rookie, I think. This is hilarious. It's bringing me back, man.
I was about to say, this is Back to the Future.
My good grief. There's a lot of good cards on here.
Why don't you just pull out a Tough Stuff Classifieds?
Right. Hey, $6. And they would tell you how many, they would be available for a week or whatever. Kind of like everything, Tops Now or Tops Living and all that stuff. And then you would buy them and sell them. And like, who had 3,000? Hank Blaylock, 3,000. 5,000 were issued of Hank Blaylock. That's ridiculous. That was his rookie card. It's got to be.
I'm glad Double D brought it up in the comments. The Pit. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, he mentioned that during our talk today. I used to hear about that. I guess it was a trading platform or a buying and selling platform.
Basically, it was like stocks. I mean, they had literal like up and down arrows for things. If somebody, went 4 for 4 or whatever. And I looked at it probably a couple hundred times and maybe bought a couple cards, but never. To me, it never felt like something that would take off. Almost like E-tops, it just felt like, where's this going to go?
Well, I think some of these were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
In some of their capabilities and, marketplace adopters. 20 years ago, if you look at the demographic of the hobby, it skewed much older than it does today.
And that's one thing we talk about. I know a lot of my colleagues use ComC, and it's that thing of we're in the mobile era for everything, and for them, they don't have it. But much like the Pit, where you could, if that was a mobile app right now, I could see it having more success than what it actually did. And, same for ComC, but the things that you do on a laptop and stuff don't happen as much and don't get as much access. It's that mobile app era.
Well, I will say some of the companies I work with, what's coming to the marketplace in the next couple of years is all going to be tech-based, real cards, pictures of real cards, so you don't, I think carrying around the giant briefcases may go away because the image scanning is getting so good and, all the information so good. And your cards may end up in a vault. You'll make a transaction, you'll send it to the other person's vault, and, that might be an exchange on a show floor.
It's like the wild card theory. Why do I have to carry 100 of these? Why don't you just give me one that has 100 stripe on it, and it's the same value?
That's old school right there.
Yeah.
It's funny as we reminisce about, days of the past. I mean, the hobby moves like the Titanic. It is so slow moving. There is very low adoption rate of new technology. We are dinosaurs, as
Totally
Double D put it. We don't want to change. I don't want to. I think ComC is only around today because people don't want to change to something else. To me, I get on ComC now and I'm like, ugh, no, thank you. Like it's lost its luster for me personally, and I know a lot of people that have a lot of complaints about ComC, but they're like, well, I've been doing it for so long. And, that's the same with Beckett OPG, online price guides and all these. We know guys, Danny, that use Beckett OPG to this day.
Not only that, card shop owners who will only go by that. And I mean, it really hurts sometimes when they talk about, staying on top of their numbers and they're very dedicated to understanding everything. And then you take out that data and you base decisions off of the online price guide from Beckett. But that's all changing. This is all technology. The more sales that are online, that's where the data comes from. Nobody's capturing, a hand-to-hand sale. So right now, all the pricing we're getting is from online sales. So the more platforms, the more data, the more third-party sites that are going to take the data and analyze it. And then we can all feel validated in our purchases if we see a number that makes us happy. And that's how a large part of the hobby works.
why do you think we are so slow to adopt new ideas and like, let's take tag grading, right? I personally have zero interest, and I'm friends with Jeremy Lee, and you know, I get it, and yet I have zero interest in it, right? That brand it's not, I don't even know if it's brand loyalty. It's laziness to want change, laziness to accept change. Am I the only one that feels that way? I might be.
Well,
No.
I think. Oh, sorry, just.
No, go ahead, because I won't forget.
I was just going to say, I think nobody wants to take the risk of change. I mean, humans don't like change in general, but
Yep.
you're not going to risk your PSA grade, on tag on anything, And I saw the product at the summit, and it's a very cool product, but I'm not going to start grading with them, on stuff that I care about.
So there is a new grading company among the hundreds that came out. It's called Forensic Card Grading. I'm in one of their groups. The owner is in the group and very active and explains. I love the concept and I love the labels. I love everything about them. My fear is if I would get a card graded, but then I go to sell it, I can love the label, love the company, love the owner. But when I go to sell it to XYZ, what's that buyer going to say? That buyer is going to say, it's not PSA, it's not Beckett, it's not SGC. I'll give you CSG maybe. That's the first thing they're going to say. Second thing they're going to say is it's also not worth as much as you think because it's not A, B, C, D. And to me, I want to jump on this forensic card grading bandwagon of small or not because I like them. But I know one day I'm going to get tired of that card and want to sell it, and I'm going to lose money, or not necessarily lose, but not maximize.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, if clients ask me what to do with their cards, I can't see a situation where I would ever make a recommendation to try a company like that. I mean,
right.
Like you said, at some point, you need to know that you're going to get a return, and you want to get as much back as possible. Oh, yes. Almost like universal registry.
Don't open that can of worms, Danny. We'll turn this into a 2-hour show instead
I
of.
love how we started with one topic and we've had
all right, I'm going to see if I can do this without showing company information. This is one half of one of the auction guides for one auction for one auction company.
You could show it.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's heritage. That's good.
But I mean, think about it. This is one half of one auction just from Heritage. That comment couldn't be more correct. Mike, Jason, if you guys hit the lottery and had all the money in the world and wanted to buy every card you wanted, how the heck could you even find them all?
I wouldn't go to an auction. I'd probably go to eBay first.
But let's say you even wanted to. How do you even begin to search all that?
Yeah.
Well, I literally have a tab within my browser that has the 10 or 12 that I look at, and they're all, I have them in their own little folder so that I can go find them easy. And then you still don't know. I'm inundated with emails from all these companies that I'm signed up with to get their catalogs, and we've got a new spring auction and the fall, opening day auction or kickoff, whatever, blah blah blah. And it's too much. It's just too much.
It's become
and I love it, by the way. Jason, you said you would rather. I love dealing with auction houses. Actually, I've had nothing but wonderful experiences.
I think it just depends on what you collect. I mean, if I was more of a vintage or high, I'm a common baseball player collector. So
all right, that's fair because you can find that stuff. The stuff I'm trying to find, I can only find typically on an auction
makes
house.
Perfect sense.
The rare Hall of Fame baseball autograph person, although I just got my rarest ever that I'll ever own on eBay, right? So go figure. But generally, like if I sold that item ever, it would be going to one of the major auction houses. I'm not going to sell it on eBay. So I think everything that's this ecosystem, Danny, that you keep talking about, that I think is an incredibly well said concept of the hobby. There's this ecosystem of all these things, and it feels very discombobulated, this ecosystem that we are all a part of. Everybody wants their nut. Everybody wants their slice of the pie, and everybody always thinks they have the better mousetrap. And yet the best idea might be to work together to create consolidated listings, consolidated registry, consolidated this and that. And yet we will unlikely to ever see it, barring Fanatics buying it all, right?
Well,
and just,
look at the strategic way Collectors has put their group together. I mean, look at their umbrella. Very strategic who's under their umbrella. I mean, they're almost, checking off every box. You got your grader, you've got your data, you've got your marketplace, you got the auction house, the vault, the whole thing. They just went, they're ready to go. You could theoretically never leave that Collector's world and hobby just within their platforms. They've gone to
you're
a
not
universal
seeing it all. You're not seeing all of it, right, Danny? You're seeing a sliver. It's like you're in a biosphere, right? In your major ecosystem of the hobby, you've got a biosphere that's completely self-contained. It can do everything you need it to do, but it's still a microcosm of what's available, like what's all out there. It's
like pre-internet. It's like pre-internet when you only had your local card shop.
That's true. eBay did change my life. It cost me a lot of money over the decades.
I think we all share. I think we all share in that.
Yeah.
When I created my eBay account in 1998, I don't think I knew that I thought it would be around in 2022, or that I might even be around in 2022. It's done a pretty good job of keeping it up.
Can I give a shout out to my fantasy football league celebrating 25 years on Yahoo?
Nice. I have friends that still have AOL.com email addresses. So, what is that? Yeah.
I got hit with an Earthlink the other day.
Let's see. I'm reading comments just to see if there's any. Yes, let's make it a 2-hour show. Well, only if you come on, Kevin. That's, the three of us are fresh out of ideas, or at least I am. Sorry, John.
So we talked about the grading, and there's the big 3 or 4. And CSG is still like muddy waters. People aren't, totally adapted to it yet. What do you think it would take for somebody to come and either be a strong 5 or knock out a Beckett or an SGC? Because PSA is obviously not going to go anywhere. They're number 1 for a while. But, what do you think? We talk about all these ones that popped up. What do they need to do to latch on? Do they need a celebrity endorsement? Do they need to grade a big card? What do they need?
Danny?
Yeah, the Derek Jeter model, I don't know if that's going to convince me to grade with that. Right. It is nice to see celebrity endorsers hitting the hobby, way to go us. But, for grading companies, listen, a lot of people came in with a lot of good ideas when money was cheap, and the pandemic was going. And the cream is going to rise to the top. And for every good idea, a fraction of them actually survive. It is so hard to start a company, much less a successful one, much less in a new marketplace. The number one thing you're going to start seeing are mergers and acquisitions. You're going to see the people with the best technology, the best data, and the best products get acquired by these larger companies, to be part of their ecosystem, whatever that is. When you see a card ladder get purchased by a collector, that's very blatant on what they're trying to do for the hobby moving forward.
I'm here. My dog's just going nuts. So we also have a guest. Speaking of dogs, Kevo Jones is with us. I told you had to join if you want this to go 2 hours. We're going
no,
all
I,
night. This is
no,
all
it's good
night
to see
hobby
you guys.
hotline. Hi, Kevin.
How you guys doing? Yeah, it's just been a fun discussion, especially kind of reminiscing. I was getting a kick, Mike, out of you looking at your e-tops. I mean, that website looks like it hasn't been updated since about 2005. It was pretty great.
I don't think it has, probably.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's funny, all the like how pigeonholed the hobby is kind of, I think, what we're all talking about. We've got all these different auction houses, all these different grading companies, all these different, products. It sometimes a little centralization would be nice. I would hope Fanatics would bring some centralization, but I doubt it. As I said very early in the broadcast tonight, the more I see Fanatics as they're getting into this, the less faith that I have that anything's going to change or get any better.
Kevo
But
comes on and we get a best adult dating site spam.
oh boy, nice.
Well, that was right after Kevin came on. So.
Yeah, I got my bot working overtime tonight.
Good grief.
But yeah, it's funny just kind of reminiscing a little bit. I think all of us remember, Mike, you were talking about having your eBay account in, starting your eBay account back in 98. And, I remember selling cards on eBay back in, 2005, 2006. And you get your digital camera out and you take your picture and you create the JPEG. And then you got to upload the JPEG into eBay. And then basically send the thing off in a PWE. And, everything, it always went smooth, right? I mean, there was always very few issues back then. But I think a lot of collectors are still like, I referred to a lot of us as Luddites. And we're a lot of us are unfortunately slow to adapt because whether we'd like to admit it or not, the collector base, I think, is primarily an older demographic.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I would say the average age in the last 3 years has probably been the most dramatic shift ever in the hobby, coming down. Because I think you're right. I think the age was disproportionately high compared to almost anything else. And now I think it's come down a little bit, but it's still very high.
Yeah, we knocked down maybe the mean by 4 or 5 years, maybe, right?
Our insurance costs are down a little bit on the
Yeah, but I do feel like too, as we were kind of pivoting to grading. I mean, Mike, I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, and it's nice to talk with you, Danny, and Jason as well. I like your perspectives, but there's just such an oversaturation with grading companies, and I feel like there's been some people who've tried to come and knock people off the upper rungs, but SGC and Beckett both had unbelievably good opportunities to do that when PSA was shut down. I think SGC kind of capitalized on it. Beckett did nothing. Another comment I had posted earlier is, that LeBron logo, man, that was pulled. That was all the rage, a few months ago. In a pre-2019 hobby or pre-pandemic hobby, there was no doubt that card would have gone to Beckett to get graded. I mean, no doubt about it. You look at old videos from the National, all the high-end top-tier relics, autos, triple patches, all of that was in Beckett.
Yep.
And
Kevin, you're right. SGC went one direction and Beckett went the other at the pandemic.
Right.
I'm going to actually show a card.
Window there.
Can I show a card?
Sure.
little HGA action, Juan Soto autograph, Topps Inception with the crazy colored label. I actually love it. I was like, this is freaking awesome. I love the custom labels you can make. I love that they took cards that were landscape and made a slab for them. I think that was a brilliant innovation, long overdue. And yet they're, on their way out of the hobby sooner rather than later. And it's like, okay, they didn't patent this idea. Why wouldn't PSA start making labels custom? Why wouldn't SGC or CSG? They're all sticking with, their color scheme, flip scheme.
Because the hobby is so scared of change, we almost want all of our slabs to look alike, be the same size, be interchangeable. I mean, CSG's green slab,
Guilty.
almost ended the world. I mean, they had to change that almost immediately.
I guess.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and I know we're running out of time, but like, I come from the mentality, and it's a very old man mentality of, to me, when you grade it, you're creating a museum identification tag, and I think they should all be the same or all be in that similar fashion. I have no issue with the color grading of the labels. If people want to do it, go for it. It's just not my cup of tea. I did, however, 100% agree with you on the horizontal cards and those slabs. I thought that was amazing, and somebody needs to do that. But I think it's the museum quality thing for me.
Look, I'm a very is homogenistic a word? I want everything to be the same, but God, I'm okay with, if I'd love to be able to have it on my PSA slab, say the Mike Moynihan collection, and I can do that at SGC.
Well, I'll give a shout out to Show Your Slabs. You can get one made for your wall and put them all up.
That is true. Actually,
go Baltimore companies.
That's actually a cool product, by the way. It's too pricey in my opinion for what it is. I'm just being incredibly transparent right now.
For a guy with a Juan Soto auto in your hand.
I hate the cards. I only like the slab. Mike's being no finer point, a little bit petty. We do get caught up too much, I think, in what the card is in and not the card itself, right? But you can't deny.
We all say buy the card, not the grade,
right?
Or buy the card, not the slab, or whatever. But do we all always adhere to that? Mike, it's funny. I've seen you compromise and get some SGC stuff for your decades set. And I'm like, I know that he's got that, but if he sees an SG or if he sees a PSA that he can upgrade into, no doubt he'll get that and move the SGC eventually.
No doubt, I would. That
right? Yeah, like the Gil Hodges or whatever, right? Yeah.
And I don't know that's. Is it? Am I a slave to the slab? Are we slaves to the slab? Yes, and
I think we just get comfortable. I mean, I just, to be honest with you, I forget to look a lot of times for like SGC or the other companies, because sometimes I'll just randomly type in PSA just out of habit almost.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us, I think we just forget to look. I want to like SGC, and I do have some SGC cards, but I'm just not fully committed. It's just something about the feel to them that I just don't like.
I do admit, when I look at a card, and this is gonna make Mr. Petty, he probably won't believe me, but it's true. I look at the card. I glance at the flip and look at the card. So I do focus on the card. I'm not, the fact that it's I just want it to be in the right holder when I look at the flip. but I do only I don't when I grab a card out of my case, I look at the card. I'm looking at the card. I'm not looking at the flip. I already know what card it is, which is what the flip's telling me. I don't need it to tell me that. I know what it is. I'm looking at the card and inspect but this, believe it or not, I'm glancing back and forth constantly at the color matching, and I have to admit it distracts the eye. So there might be something to the plainness, Jason, of a museum quality type thing, simplistic. I mean, if you think, you can say what you want about tag grading. When you look at their case, the transparency of all the rest of it, you have to look at the card. Like the card is the focal point.
Their cases were crystal clear. I took a picture and I had a hard time because it looked like I was going right through the slab. You couldn't even pick up the slab.
Yeah, I mean, you have to focus on the card with that slab. But the idea that any of the grading companies can't go, that's a great idea. Maybe we won't do it exactly the same as XYZ other company, but we could do something. Why not offer a different colored flip? You may go, Jason, no, I want all mine to be red because that's what I've always been used to. Great. You can just choose. Give us options.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. If PSA offered a custom label option, would you pay the same money for a card with a different color custom label as you would their standard label?
Depends on how I collect. It depends on how you collect.
I might pay more or less, because if it hurts my collection, if it doesn't match, I would probably pay less.
See, I think that
it depends on how well it's done, too, right?
Yeah.
Because I also get bothered when PSA, especially, they change their label every 2 years, it feels like, or whatever, because there is one vintage set that I'm kind of working on PSA graded, but I don't want to buy the ones that are different labels than the 7 or 8 that I already have, because I want them all to match.
Much less be 4 different companies.
Right.
Now, Mike, you made a comment one time that you had your storage built for a very specific size grading company, and other grading companies actually you can't store.
Yep. My SGC slabs that are in there I have to turn them sideways because they don't fit.
But that's where your mentality was when it was built. I mean, yeah.
But it doesn't keep me, like Kevin said, I have picked up some SGCs. I don't have anything against other companies. It's just slave to the registry. I think somebody said that. Oh, Mike did. Yes.
Sometimes.
Guilty.
Well, and Mike, I mean, face it. I mean, look at that cabinet behind you. I mean, you're deep. It's. I mean, you're the roots run deep. Yeah,
they do. I do. When my son's going to start a company and build these, by the way, do it with my dad, and it's going to be really. There's not a ton of people that want something like this. They'll want something smaller or whatever, but it's going to be more universal to hold multiple company. You're not going to have, it'll be more of a universal type drawer instead of a PSA only drawer. Although it does hold HGA slabs and Beckett slabs. Ironically,
it's funny. CSG as well. They line up pretty well with PSA. I mean, I think they even stack with PSA. I've got a couple of I've got one HGA card myself, and I intentionally picked it. It's the that Bernie Sanders Tops Now, where he's all sitting there bundled up with the mittens. Like if I'm going to get one HGA slab that I feel like kind of sums that company up, this is the card I'm going to get. Yeah, well, I think I got it from Mike O.
I was about to say, I think it speaks to the power of PSA that other companies are building to their specs. I mean, think about that. These are companies that are going into the business of competition, and they're building to the specs of the company they're trying to take, the business from. I mean, that just shows you really how powerful PSA is.
Yeah, my PSA Superior fits, they work for CSGs.
I mean, there's
another HGA card for me. and then I have the PSA version. So what I thought, this is one of my favorite cards of all time, the 58 Topps All-Star Musial, because it's his first Topps card, and I love Musial. I was thinking I'm going to get this card in every slab. Like I'm going to buy.
Do you have a CSG of that too, Mike?
No, I'm watching one right now on eBay, but I need a SGC one, CSG, and I just, I think if you can go, all right, I got all these next to each other. What, and the money part of it, like people ask me all the time, would you ever convert to SGC or some other company? It's like, well, if they would pay for it, sure. I mean, I can be bought. Ironically, that would be such a big fat no for me. Like, no, I just don't want to do it. If Peter called me today and said, Mike, I'm going to comp you and do this whole story on you moving all your entire collection over to SGC, I'd go, thanks, Peter, but no thanks. It would just be it's more of a pain in the rear than anything.
Or what if there was a universal registry?
Then I would just start buying other cards. I wouldn't want to convert them all.
Right, but that quickly you would be open-minded almost overnight?
Instantaneously. I would become slab agnostic.
I mean, I think that's fascinating for the hobby to hear.
And I'm only one dude. Like, other people wouldn't care.
There's a lot of people that are loyal to the PSA registry.
Jason is.
No? I'm loyal to the same thing. However I start, that's how I finish. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like PSA as well. I mean, that I was always I'm never getting anything graded, and then I converted in 2019. And like I said, I have some SGCs. I've got an entire run of the 56 Topps Hall of Famers in SGC. They're all low grade, but that to me made sense to put those cards into that because they were low grade. And the black border actually makes them pop pretty good. But yeah, I mean, PSA, it's just like nobody's knocking them off their pedestal. All these people can nip at the heels, and all these companies can be created and try to, fight for number 2, but nobody's knocking PSA off. Only thing that can knock PSA is PSA itself. I feel like, as if that's the only.
They
can't even.
Yeah, they literally shut down.
They just. I mean, they've weathered the crises, controversies, delays, people taking 18 months to get cards, but people are probably still waiting for stuff they sent in early 2021. Yeah, it's they're the king of the hill.
Danny, I have to agree with you on a point you made earlier. HGA has subgrades, and it is pretty cool to look at this Musial 1958, 4.0 on corners, 5 on surface, 5.5 on edges, 8.5 on centering. That's kind of cool to see that, honestly.
For me, it's just information. I like to know what the grader was looking at, because so many times you get back a number, you're like, what beat me up on that? What was it? Because I thought it was good. I thought that, so when you get to see that, I don't know, I just like seeing it.
I wouldn't even care if it was on the label, if it was provided somewhere else.
That's a great idea. Just have it on the registry.
It's just what we do. We just do great ideas on this show.
We're not bad for a bunch of calendar models.
We need a VC person to watch this and just go, man, you guys are going to be my hobby think tank. That's what we should change the name of the show to. It's not Hobby Hotline anymore. It's Hobby Think Tank. We are the future of the hobby. Now, we do need to cut this out, guys. We've been going long. And Kevin, thanks for joining in, man. I appreciate your insight.
Yeah, I really wish, shout out to the chat. I wish more people would call in. I mean, that was the original concept of this broadcast. And, I used to call in a lot in the early days on the Saturday morning shows, and it's always fun. It's always fun. Yeah, I think a
Everybody
lot of
smoking
people
here.
maybe feel like they don't have their point of entry to like hop into the conversation. So it's always good to like, I think encourage people to hop in, because it's always fun to hear different perspectives, and it sometimes can change the flow of the conversation too a little bit for good or worse, but yeah, it was fun to be on and to chat with everybody. And that 58 Musial is a highly underrated card in my book.
I agree. I love it. And we like it as hosts too. We all talk to each other all the time. The Hobby Hotline crew. We want to talk to you guys out there that have different opinions. If you disagree with us, it's okay. Like, come, make your case and talk to us. And we don't have a monopoly on good ideas, although we do come up with, again, Hobby Think Tank 1.0.
Well, did we decide that we have monopoly at the Monocle Man?
Yes. I don't even know how much. We didn't really even go down that road a whole ton.
Yeah.
But
so what we want and what we came up with tonight, our action plan is we want a centralized auction registry for the big auction houses. We want a universal set registry. And I feel
One
like
vault.
there was one more idea.
One vault.
One vault, yes.
I think if there was only one vault, it might be more successful. Sorry. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Danny, Jason, Kevin, thanks for being here as always. Thank you to all you guys in the chat. Oh, bye, Kev. Kev took off. Yeah, Orlando, hop on next time. Our next show will be Saturday on Bench Clear Media. I hope everybody's enjoying the Bench Clear Media Hobby Hotline editions. And this show will be back next Tuesday with 3 other knuckleheads to talk about this hobby that we love. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you all have a great night. Take care. Keep collecting.